How about now? One. I got one in the chat stream. One in the chat stream. If you can hear me. There we go. All right, cool. All right, guys. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. How's everybody doing tonight? I'm small. What's going on? What do you mean I'm small? Oh yeah, in the corner. Don't worry, it'll be my big head here in a minute. So don't be don't worry about it. It'll be there in a second. All right, guys. I am Jason Wallace. I am a believer and follower of Jesus Christ. I'm a prayer warrior, an intercessor, a Bible reader, a devoted husband and father. My head is cut off. I don't know about that. It doesn't look like it over here on mine. Let's go like this, maybe. Let's see. Does that help? um, my forehead. No way. I don't know about that. It looks fine on my phone, so I don't know what's going on with yours. Maybe it is cut off. That's all right. You'll be there in a second. Hey, Russell Clark, thanks for joining. Seems like you've been here yesterday and today. That's good. Thank you for joining. All right, guys. I am a child of God. I am a devoted husband and father. There we go. I am a new creation in Christ. I am a saint. I'm a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. Right? I'm redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, fearfully and wonderfully made. And if you want to find out any more of these wonderful affirmations, right? All these ones with the Bible references there, you can go to JesusDidIt.org, the website, and you can click on the red arrow as soon as it pops up. You can click on the red arrow and it'll give you a download. You can download and print out and stick it in your Bible. And it's all the affirmations. It's all the I am statements that you that there. And if you want to get the shirt, there's an I am shirt. There's a couple other new shirts there. It looks like there's some Healing Flow one, and then there's some other ones he's got going on there. I don't know what's going on there. Now I gotta go check the website a little while. No, it shouldn't be frozen. Everything looks good here. Can you not hear me? Maybe just frozen for Liz. Everything's good here, it looks like. Alright, guys, let's get into the reading here. We're reading tonight into Judges 4. Judges 4. Judges 4. This is about Deborah. Alright, so Deborah is another judge. Here she comes. We're going to learn about her. Judges chapter 4. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Now Ehud was dead. So the Lord sold them into the hands of Jabin, the king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. Sisera, the commander of his army, was based in Harosheth Hogalim, because he had 900 chariots fitted with iron and had cruelly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. They cried to the Lord for help. Now Deborah, a prophet, the wife of Lapidoth, was leading Israel at the time. She held court under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim. And the Israelites went up to her to have her dispute decided, or have their disputes decided. She sent for Barak, the son of Abinoam of Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, "The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, go take 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun, and lead them up to Mount Tabor. I will lead Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his troops to Kishon River, and give him into your hands." Barak said to her, "If you go with me, I will go. But if you don't go with me, I won't go." "Certainly I will go with you," said Deborah, "but because of the course you are taking, the honor will not be yours, for the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh. There Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali and 10,000 men, and went up under his command. Deborah also went with him. Now Heber, the Kenite, had left the other Kenites, the descendants of Hobab, Moses' brother-in-law, and pitched his tent by the great tree of Zananim near Kadesh. They told Sisera that Barak, son of Abinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor. Sisera summoned from Haresh Hogomom to the Kishon River all of the men, and 900 chariots fitted with iron. Then Deborah said to Barak, Go, this is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Has not the Lord gone ahead of you? ? Big one. So Barak went down to Mount Tabor with 10,000 men, following him. At Barak's advance, the Lord routed Sisera and all his chariots and the army by the sword, and Sisera got down from his chariot and fled on foot. Barak pursued the chariots and the army as far as Haresh Hogomom, and all of Sisera's troops fell by the sword. Not a man was left. Sisera, meanwhile, fled on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, because there was an alliance between Jabin, the king of Hazor, and the family of Heber the Kenite. Jael went out to meet Sisera and said to him, Come, my lord, come right in. Don't be afraid. So he entered the tent, and she covered him with a blanket. I'm thirsty, he said. Please give me some water. She opened a skin of milk and gave him a drink and covered him up. Stand in the doorway of the tent, he told her. If someone comes by and asks you, Is anyone in there? Say no. But Jael, the Heber's wife, picked up a tent peg and a hammer and went quietly to him while he lay fast asleep, exhausted. She drove a peg through his temple into the ground, and he died. Just then Barak came by in pursuit of Sisera, and Jael went out to meet him. Come, she said, I will show you the man you are looking for. So he went with her, and there lay Sisera with a tent peg through his temple, dead. On that day God subdued Jabin, king of Canaan, before the Israelites, and the hand of the Israelites pressed harder and harder against Jabin, the king of Canaan, until they destroyed him. That is chapter 4, and that is the reading for tonight for that one. Somebody said good night. I'm trying to miss somebody's stuff. We got a bunch of people in here tonight. All right, cool. So, looks like it was a little bit faster than the words on the screen. I'm going to have to pick up the pace there a little bit. Talk about a killer headache, I know, right? That's definitely not going to be, Excedrin will not fix that. It will not fix it. Excedrin definitely will not fix that one. So who's joined in here tonight? Who we got? Hey, Malia, how are you doing? I see Desert Liz. I see Rob Keller. Thanks for joining. Let's see what we got. Steve's in here. How you doing, buddy? And we have Korean food. Oh, his name was showing up here a second ago. I think it's Russell, I think that's what it was. I am fine. How are you? Russell, that's what his name. Yep. I am fine. I'm doing really, really good. It's a good day today. We had our church picnic and all kinds of stuff going on. So it was, hey, how's it going? Yeah. So we had a good time. Tired, and everybody wants to get to sleep, and looks like we were a little bit of favor with Rick having to be at church late tonight. So Rick will be on after a while. He said he's running late, and he will be on in a little while. So for those of you who are not on the notification group, that's what's going on. So I'm taking his spot tonight, and he's going to take mine. So hopefully he'll be there. I'm good. It sounds like you had a good time. You're at church. always a great time. And if you guys, anybody who is really feeling kind of low, I really suggest that you watch my church, the at North Darien, BC. Definitely take a look at today's broadcast. We do the replay. You will go towards the end, and you'll see our drummer. You had a great time at the retreat. Awesome. That's right. You were going away for a couple days. That's great. That's why we haven't seen you. I hope you had a great time. Yeah. So take a look at it. If you're pondering, if you're having problems with drugs or addiction or alcohol or stuff like that, he gave his testimony today towards the end of the service. So if you go at North Darien, BC, and just take a look at the last part of the stream, you'll he really gave a great testimony about that, about his struggle with that, and how he would wish for more people to. Yep, testimonies are great. I love it when people give them at church. It is great. We get to know a little bit more about a person, and you get to understand their situation. It's sort of it changes your mind about them a little bit too, right? And that guy made me cry, so I had to go to a picnic where I'm up there in the booth. I'm like, just like, because he spoke of suicide because of what happened with the Linkin Park singer. I don't know if any you guys may or may not know Chester Bennington, but he lost his battle with depression and this week, and they said he hung himself. So we're going to speak against suicide tonight for sure, and depression and alcohol abuse. Yeah, so sad about that. Yeah. Some guy in the retreat fell to the floor and started yelling. It turned out he was not feeling well. Yeah, sometimes that'll happen when you're in a place where you're feeling, who knows? It may be something, inside of him. Yeah, it is pretty sad. So definitely. All right, guys. So let's get reading our spiritual warfare. It is real. Trust me. Trust me. It is real. And we just keep battling, All right, so every night we read from the Our Daily Bread. Our Daily Bread is a free publication. It is a free devotional. It's every day. It has a new devotional. So yeah, it is very real. Check out odb.org website if you'd like to get your own copy, or you can come here every night and we will read it for you. All right, so for Sunday, July 23rd, the title is "Didn't Get Credit?" ? All right, this is written by Cindy Hess Casper. Hollywood musicals are widely popular during the 1950s and 1960s, and three actresses in particular, Audrey Hepburn, Natalie Wood, and Deborah Kerr, thrilled viewers with their compelling performances. But a huge part of their appeal of these actresses was the breathtaking singing that enhanced their acting. In fact, the classic film's successes were actually due in large part to Marni Nixon, who dubbed the voices for each of those leading ladies, and who for a long time went completely uncredited for her vital contribution. In the body of Christ, there are often people that faithfully support others who take a more public role. The Apostle Paul depended on exactly that kind of person in his ministry. Tertius's work. Tertius's work as a scribe gave Paul his powerful written voice. Ephra's consistent behind-the-scene prayers were essential foundation for Paul and in the early church. Lydia generously opened her home when the weary apostle needed restoration. Paul's work could not have been possible without the support he received from these fellow servants in Christ. We may not always have highly visible roles, yet we know that God is pleased when we are obediently play our essential part in His plan. When we give ourselves fully to the work of the Lord, we will find value and meaning in our service, as it brings glory to God and draws us to Him. Amen. That's a good one tonight. I like this. All right, the prayer for tonight says, Lord, help me to be obediently, Lord, help me to obediently do my part in the role you have chosen for me. And the footnote says, the secret of true service is absolute faithfulness wherever God places you. Today's reading was from Colossians chapter 4, verses 7 through 18. And the key verse for today is from Matthew chapter 5, verse 16. Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Amen. That is a great prayer, isn't it? Lord, help me to obediently do my part in the role you have chosen for me. Amen. Sometimes you don't get that credit, right? You don't get that credit, but that's all right, because we know that that we're storing up riches in heaven, right? We're storing up these things that we do here. Let's store up those riches in heaven. I don't need them here. Write that down. Exactly. All this stuff, you can go to odb.org, the website, and they have all this information there too. So if anytime you forget to write something down, or if you don't want to go back and rebroadcast, you can certainly go to the website and check it out. I really love these guys' readings. It's just it helps my day. It really does. It helps my day to be able to go through them and understand a little bit more. Sorry. Helps you read. The reading helps you to understand a little bit more every day. Yes, you can. I'll put it back up again. It should be down here. If you go down to the bottom there, I don't know. Well, that's kind of hard to see, isn't it? Wow, that's kind of not so good to see. What's going on there? Let me fix that real quick, because that looks pretty bad. Let me put some background to it or something. Let's see. Does that look a little better? That looks a little bit better. Yeah, so it's at North Darien, BC, and it's probably hidden underneath the thing. You probably can't see it. So what did Jesus do, and what does He do now? That's a really good question. I like that. I like that question. Finally got to the point where I figured out what I figured out was another jewel in my crown. Whoa, what's that all about? We got some bots in here. We got some stuff going on. We got our Hayes and our Hedges person. Yeah, the at North Darien, BC, or you can go to northdarien.com, or you can look us up on Facebook at North Darien Bible Church. Is also one. Hey Jerry, thank you for joining. I missed that bot, so I'll have to get that one again once I get back into here. Let's see. Let's go back into our prayer time scene. There she is. Goodbye. We're going to call that one spam, and then we're going to block you. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Goodbye. I can't believe that person has 10,000 viewers. It's crazy. Not getting recognition. Another jewel in my crown. There you go. Absolutely. There it is, Yeah, there it is. Get another jewel in your crown. Amen. 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 Alright, any prayer requests or praise reports or anything like that? Let's see. Someone had asked a question down here. They probably left. Joe's Pizza. So Joe's Pizza. What did Jesus do? And what does He do now? So here we go. Here's what Jesus did. And I know this person's just reaching, but that's alright. Maybe even trolling on us, but that's fine as well, because I'm going to explain it anyways, right? Because I normally do at every single time that I'm here on the broadcast. I share the gospel of Jesus Christ. So Jesus Christ was sent down from heaven, right? So we were broken people, and God had to do something, right? He had to do something for us because He just absolutely loves us, right? Pray for your daughter Becky as she is in rehab. All right, yes, we're speaking to rehabs today. We're speaking to people who have addictions. So I'm just an atheist, and I only started to wonder what He did. All right, well, we'll explain what He did in a little bit here. So we got Jerry, your daughter's Becky, daughter, and she's in rehab. All right, yeah, absolutely, we got you covered. All right, yeah. So what Jesus did was, Jesus, no problem. Um, Jesus was came down here as obviously as a baby, right? He was born of a virgin, and he walked this earth for 33 years, right? And if God is real, please pray that the war in Syria ends and the tarnished people get help. We can pray for war. We can pray against the war, absolutely. But we'll have to accuse it as being he's not real. But addiction is no joke. So, Jesus Christ walked this earth for 33 years. He showed us what a perfect example of a completely holy and sinless person is to look like. He was supposed to be our example. Um, but he knew his destiny, that he would have to take all of our sins, be an atonement for every single one of our sins, and die on the cross. So he died on the cross. They buried him, and then 3 days later he rose again, walked around on the earth, and then ascended to heaven. And that is the love story of uh, of God, who came down here to save us because we were broken people, and absolutely no turning back from that sin. But the only way we can get rid of it, right, is through believing that Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior. I heard about an ark and animals and stuff. Cool, yep. Well, the ark and animals is stuff that goes way back. It's a lot further into it, but that all has to do to it as well. The reason why there was an ark and there was animals was because, once again, if we were to start in the beginning, from even the very beginning, um, Jesus was supposed to be the new Adam, right? Because the first Adam, Adam and Eve, right? They broke one of God's, really the only rule that they had, was to not eat of the fruit and of this one particular tree, and that's it. And they got tricked into it, and they ate the fruit, and um, and so it was broken, right? So right from the beginning, it was all broken, and this is a continuous thing. Us humans, because God gave us free will and the ability to be able to make decisions on our own, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, we continually think that we are better than God, that we are God ourselves, right? How far back is the beginning of Christianity? How far back is the beginning? Well, you can trace Jesus Christ all the way back to the beginning. You can trace it all the way back. The lineage runs all the way through, and there is references to this person who is the Messiah, and the person who is going to save the people. Is lots of references. Oh, it's got to be, I don't even know, it was what, 1400 years, something like this. Liz, I think it was like 1400 years or something like that. Liz might be able to help me out. I'm not quite sure the exact numbers. Listen, I'm still a fairly new believer myself. I came to Jesus Christ, being saved, acknowledging Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, probably about 3 years ago. The Earth is 14,000 years old. I don't know about that. I don't know that. It's no sense playing the numbers game, right? The fact is, the matter is that you can believe what you want to believe, but in the end of the day, what is going to come out of it is the truth will always prevail, right? The truth will always prove itself to be true. And every day, there's even scientists and things like that are coming out that are showing us that what this, all this stuff that is showing up as biblical is actually starting to show as being truth. So if you want some understanding it from a scientific standpoint, you can go take a look at, I always thought it was about 4 billion years old again. But again, it's all good. Yeah, so I encourage you to go to a website. It's called answersingenesis.org. Oh, there's a whole bunch of things, and nobody really knows except for God, right? God's the one that knows exactly when He made all this stuff, and what do we know, right? Yeah, the truth always prevails, absolutely. So if you were to go to answersingenesis.org and put in the search there of whatever it is that you're interested in, like how old is the Earth, or was there dinosaurs on the Ark, or things like that, it will come up that, yeah, Google Earth says it's 4.5 billion years old. Yeah, but who knows exactly, right? Google doesn't know everything, right? Yeah, I don't know. You know about that, right? But yeah, take a look at that, answersingenesis.org. It is a group. They actually have a full-size ark in Kentucky that you can go and visit, and I find it funny that how the universe is infinite. Does that mean that God is still building? Well, the words in the Bible say what? All right, all right. And the words in the Bible say one thing, and this is one thing that really sticks with me, right? And so this is my understanding. If we were to go to the very first, right? Genesis chapter 1. Okay. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Okay. So the heavens is everything that's not the earth, right? So He created all of the universe, right? So He created the heavens and the earth. Very first sentence in the Bible. All right. Now the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Right. So is heaven another dimension or something? Well, there's different references about heaven, right? And some people believe that there is a first heaven, a second heaven, a third heaven. You know, I don't know. I'm still learning about all that stuff myself. It's a realm, yeah. So it is definitely a place without time, right? Is that NIV? Yes, it is. Should I read it from a different? I don't have a different Bible with me right now because I usually when I want to do cross references I use my phone because I use the yeah, I use my phone for that. So you know, yeah, oh, it's fine. It's very similar words, right? You know. If we were to put it, I'll go pull it up on Bible.org and take a look and see. Because it has different versions there. You can get Bible.org or Bible Gateway or whatever it is. It's a realm. Why haven't we observed it? Surely somewhere in the universe. Well, when you can't, when it is someplace that we can't see, it's in a different dimension, right? Or however you want to put it. How can we see different dimensions? Is it possible for us to see a different dimension? You would have to have some form of travel to get there, right? You would have to somehow leave this earth or this dimension, right? I don't know. Yeah, it's spiritual, right? And it's something that you know, some things our brains just can't fathom, right? So our knowledge can only go so far. Our brains are only so big. The complexity of what it is this universe is extremely large, and so you know, human knowledge can only go so deep, right? Exactly. So if we were to go to English version, I just wanted to double check and see what. Let's go to we can go right back to the King James version if you'd like. This is Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void. the darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So there you go. Very similar words, not much difference, right? But it's there. I heard Jesus was king, and where did he rule? That's good. You got some good questions. You got some really good questions. I thank you for coming on here. First of all, let's do this like one big multiverse. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still trying to sort that part out in my head. So let's get some prayer going here. We got some prayer. Why does the King James won't say only heaven and the others say heavens? It's very interesting. I guess it just depends on how it was translated from well, that would be probably Aramaic, right? Aramaic or Hebrew. So not quite sure that part of it. It's maybe just how the translator how it was translated, right? I'm just using my human curiosity. That's fine. It's very good, and he is still the king. Absolutely, he is. His kingdom is in heaven, right? He absolutely. That's good. Yeah, definitely question it, because as long as you're seeking and you're open to understanding, or trying to understand, is when you'll definitely receive what he's trying to display to you. And God's always working on everybody, and it's just whether you are being obedient and accepting that part of the challenge, right? There are other kings and queens, surely. I'm just mocking him if he was a real king. He's a real king. He's on the throne. He's sitting on the right hand of his Father, right hand of the Father, and you know, it's really a hard concept to understand about the the whole Trinity thing, right? Yeah, we all have questions, but some things are just past our human knowledge. Yeah. So Jesus was a Jew. Jesus was a Jew. Jesus, when he came here in flesh, he came here as a Jew, and he decided to, as he came here, he decided to take on human flesh, right? And so when he did that, he also decided to not have this, not the full and complete knowledge, right? He decided to leave some of that knowledge behind, right? Wasn't he from Israel or something? That's very good. Israel is a group of people, right? And the area is from Israel, yes. All right, so let's get praying about. We have one prayer request here that I saw. I don't know if I missed any other ones, but we're going to pray for Becky, and that is Jerry's daughter, Becky, who's in rehab. Yes, they're very smart. Absolutely, very highly educated. So, Lord Heavenly Father, we just lift up Becky today, Lord. We know that Jerry's daughter, Becky, is going through rehab now, Lord, and we ask that you give her strength and just give her strength to endure the time that it takes to repair the damage that was done by whatever the substance is that was taking a hold on her life. Lord, let her, as she starts repairing her body, Lord, and repairing herself and her mentally, Lord, give her understanding that you are always there with her, Lord. Touch her on her shoulder, whisper in her ear, and tell her that you love her. Lord, we ask that you also let her be able to understand that she can fill that void that she was using whatever the substance was to make her feel good. Lord, let her use that pain to replace that pain with your love, Lord, and your understanding. Give her peace and comfort over her body and over her mind. And Lord, we also ask that you we lift up Jerry and her family, and being able to be strong enough to be able to support and have complete and just peace at knowing that your daughter, Becky, is under control with the situations at hand. Lord, we ask this in your mighty Son's name. Amen. Yeah, I hope so too. Addiction is real, man. It is definitely real. We definitely lift her up. Successful recovery in Jesus' name. Absolutely. Amen. Tinian, how are you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I haven't seen you in a bit. I do enjoy your guys' presence. It's so great to see lots of good people on here today. We have even got some people who are asking questions. I love it when our atheist friends come on and start asking questions. Amen. Amen, I guess, if that cements our healing. That just means that you're in agreement, that you agree that that the words that I'm saying are honoring to God. So that's what amen means, right? It's just it's your agreement towards that, and you know, it's just what it means. So some people don't know. That's good, and I don't know if you're being, I don't know if you're being let me see here, please. It hurts me. Pray for Syria. Yeah, we can pray for Syria. Absolutely, absolutely. So you're doing awesome. That's good. I'm hoping the shirt is fitting you well, and you're able to wear it out and show people what Jesus did it is. It's so cool. There's my shirt. I'm wearing it today. All right. Wearing my shirt today. I wore it at the church picnic. So I had a couple people walking around saying hello and checking out my shirt. I was watching a YouTube video about an atheist that went to hell and became a Christian after. Yeah, so what you want to do is, if you want to check that out, there was a very, 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 very well-known atheist. His name was C.S. Lewis. Take a look at C.S. Lewis. Is that the cross like the one Jesus was on? Absolutely. Yep. That is my memory. That is for me to remind myself every day that I'm carrying my cross, right? My things that are going on in my life that I've given to Jesus. So the cross is just my remembrance that I need to. Why was he killed and who did it? He was killed because people thought that he was a blasphemer, and that he was not who he said he was. Right? Yes. Thank you, Jesus. Absolutely. They thought he was a blasphemer, and they said that and at that time, blasphemy is really, really big, big, big no-no. That's like it's pretty up there with murder, right? So as it were, the time came for crucifixion, and there was a murderer, and then there was Jesus, who was a blasphemer, and because he stirred up so many emotions, right? Is it still a death sentence in some places? Yeah, I don't know. If you were to go and take a look at, I would think that some of the Islamic states would probably tell you yes, based on their stuff, right? Yep, exactly. In the Middle East, some of the Islamic states, those guys are pretty serious about blasphemy. Over here in the United States, we use it like it's the next, unfortunately, we say his name in vain a lot, um, and it is. It's almost become daily words for some people. But I try myself to not do that. In the retreat, we talked about the history of the cross and saw a little clip of the Passion of Christ. Absolutely. I like Turkey because they are Western Islam, a bit more tolerant. Yeah, there's different degrees of that too. Turkey's kind of an interesting place to be, because it plays kind of a vital role in the balance of the Middle East. So getting back to what we were talking about, why he was on the cross. Yeah, because they thought that everybody does. It's unbelievable. I love what Rick says. Rick says as soon as somebody says it, says that Jesus this or Jesus that, they're in a store, he'll turn around and yell out, Where is he? I want to see him. Where is he? Like he's coming back from the second coming, right? But yeah, so there, because he challenged all the people that were doing things bad, right? you know, the things people that were doing, right? There was quote unquote religious people, right? You know, these Jewish smart men that so why did they use a tool? Why what? So why use the tool used to kill Jesus to worship him? I don't worship the cross. I worship Jesus. I wear the cross to remind myself of what he did and what he did for me, and about how he took all my sins, everything that I've done bad, and put them up on that cross with him and took them away when he died. So um, it's just a remembrance, right? It's something for me to be able to remind myself every day that I need to keep myself in check, because Jesus took away my sins on that cross, and to keep myself straight. Um, You know, everybody does everything a little bit differently. Some people don't wear crosses, and that's fine. You don't have to wear a cross to be a Christian, right? He was human or a higher being. The answer would be yes. The answer is yes. Yep, it reminds us what he went through for all of us, exactly. And was he human or a higher thing? The answer to that question is yes. He was a human with a higher being, right? So we know that he is not the cross. He's not on the cross anymore. Exactly. Exactly. What he did at the cross was finished. And he rose again, right? And then he ascended to heaven. Took that sin away. And I'm very grateful for that. Because without that, I wouldn't be here probably today. I'd probably be in not a very good spot. Um, probably be broken even worse than I am now. That's so sad to see people that are going through pain and suffering, right? And things like that. So especially people who you know, yeah, both God and human, perfectly and totally, absolutely, absolutely. He was a sinless man. There was and there has been no other since that has been a sinless man. Um, absolutely. Thank you for dying up for us, Jesus. Absolutely. We praise you and we worship you. Send it out. Just like that, he's coming back. He's coming back. Can't wait. I can wait, right? Yeah, but he rose again. Absolutely. Welcome, Kim. Thanks for joining. So yeah, but that is the story of Jesus, right? You read Jesus as a prophet in Islam. Well, in certain words, he would be a prophet, right? The sooner the better. This world's going to hell in a handbasket, right? His return is imminent. That's what a lot of people are saying. A lot of people are saying that we are truly in the end times. I'm not really a big end time speaker guy, you know. I'm not going to worry about it either. I'm not going to be the whistleblower on the street, so to speak. Um, you know, there is enough of that. But what I want to do is I want to make effective use of my time that's left, and um, I want to help other people understand who Jesus Christ was, because if you don't understand who he was, and if you don't have faith and belief in him, and you do not accept him as your Lord and Savior, um, you and I won't be seeing each other in heaven when that time comes, right? We won't be there together because you have to have full belief. Jesus said, no one goes to the Father except through me, right? Yep, we'll wait. I'll wait. But I'll be ready. Exactly. We'll wait for his return, and I'll be ready. Because I claim and I call out through my voice and my mouth that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and I'll worship him and praise him till the day I die, and then even more on the day that I am brought to heaven. Respected people believe in something. I would like it if more people respected me for not. Hey, listen, it is fine with me. However you want to do. You know, like I tell everybody who comes on here, I'm not going to sit here and bash you over the head with a Bible and tell you that you need to have Jesus, right? If you want to stay in here and ask questions, I got no problem with that. If you want to, if you want to know more about Jesus, stay in here and we'll talk about it. If you want to, if you want to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior with your mouth, if you want to say it out loud, we will gladly, all of us would gladly come over to your broadcast that you would have, where you're going to say that you accept Jesus Christ, and we will support you and pray for you, and just help you through that situation. Yeah. So you've seen videos of Muslims converting to Christianity. Yeah, there is, and it's happening. It's happening. There is lots of people that are so that are so oppressed, and when they find Jesus, it's like our new beginning for them, right? And even if you're not oppressed, right? This was a new beginning for me when I found Jesus Christ. When the day that I realized that I needed to call out by His name, that He is my Lord and Savior. And that day when I was standing there watching a plane come in, right? Yep, it's your decision to make. Yep, I can't do it for you. You got to do it. And all I can do is help guide you through that. And if you need help, if you want, send me an email, right? If you want to, we can chat back and forth on a chat thing. We can maybe talk on the phone or Skype or whatever it may be, offline, if that's something you need help with. I have no problem with helping people, right? Is it okay to pray out of respect rather than actually believing? Well, when we pray, what we're doing is we're lifting the situation up, right? We're taking the situation and we're bringing it before our Father, right? We're bringing it before Him, and we're saying, Lord, we bring this situation to you, Lord, and we ask that through our faith and our belief, right? That we bring it up to God to be able to show Him what our intentions are, right? And how we how we would request it to be, right? But the thing is right, when we do that, it may not get answered right away, right? We talked about this yesterday, right? We talked about this yesterday when I read this book out yesterday. If you have questions about prayer, I recommend you follow me and then go back, right? It is praying is communicating with God. It is constant communication. It is your key to having that relationship with Jesus Christ, right? I've already made my choice, but I'm an extremely curious person. That's fine, absolutely, and we'll gladly help you understand. We have other atheists that come on here every day. I'm surprised Slim's not on here. Usually Slim pops in and he usually asks a couple questions. He hangs out. He listens to us talk, because he's curious as well. The fact that you're on here and you're asking questions means that there is something, right, in all of us. Every single human being has a place, right, inside of us that has an understanding, right, a belief of that God is there, right? There's a belief in there. It may be suppressed by other things. It may be locked away. You may not be letting it out, or you may not even know how to access that, right? So, but it's built in. It's ingrained into us, right? God put that in there because He wouldn't have created us without having a mechanism, right, for us to want to worship Him, right? But it's our choice, is really what it is, right? We have to let it out. We have to let the Holy Spirit come into us, right? So when we do that, so when we let that out of our mouth, right? We say that the Lord Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, right? Is evolution ever mentioned in Christianity? No, not. I would not say so. We've had several broadcasts about evolution before. But if you're interested in specifically about prayer, I ask that you go back to yesterday's broadcast when we talked about we read this book about prayer, and what it means to pray, and how to pray, and and what it's for, right? We're asking for it. We're asking for God to help us through things, right? And it depends on and that depends on which Christians you ask, yeah. And that is some of the issues that us Christians have with other Christians, is because there are some people that are taking on lots of other forms of Christian, like they're building their own forms of Christianity, right? where they're trying to bring in some worldly things and understanding, just to try to attract a certain age group or a certain group of people. The fact of the matter is that God created everything, all right, and it's written in our Bible that God created everything, right, and we can talk about that. You know, we have a book that helps us understand, and you know, everything was created as it is. And some people will be like, "Whoa, how come this and how come that?" And so my question is, there's a couple questions, right? A couple questions that I have is that if things are evolving, how come only you grew up around Protestants? How is that different from Catholicism? Well, I'm Protestant myself, and I know that Liz is Catholic, and I used to be in a Catholic church, you know, and how is it different? It's not much different, other than the fact that Catholics have a certain way of doing things, right? They have an order of the Mass. They have a very well defined what they do, and they have things laid out, and it helps them, guides them through their relationship with Jesus Christ. Most Protestants, and most of them, I would say, are if they are of a non-denominational, right? Their guidebook is going to be, and their rules, their everything that it is inside the Bible. So that's the book that I go by, right? Why is the Pope important in Christianity? Well, the Pope is not important the Pope is not important only in the Catholic Church, right? He is the head of the Catholic Church. He has not much to do with the Protestant Church. Jesus is mine. So we'd be up way past midnight if we try to answer that one, right? Exactly. Exactly. Let's put it this way. Becky, thanks for joining. You had awesome. I loved the picture. The Christian of Coke picture. That was awesome. Yeah, we'd be up way past midnight if we had to talk about that. Like I said, any questions, anything like that, definitely throw in the chat stream. We'll talk about it. Prayer requests, praise reports, whatever it may be. Hi Becky, we have a new friend who's declaring themselves as an atheist. His name is Joe Pizza. If you notice him here, seems to be a very friendly person. Has lots of questions. So it's nearly 5 a.m. there in the UK. Well, I am glad that you are. Yep, I love pizza too, right? It's 4:46 in the UK, but I have insomnia. So yeah, it is 11:47 here in Western New York. So exactly. All right, guys. Any prayer requests or praise reports? Jesus can heal that. Absolutely, he can. He can heal insomnia, no doubt. No doubt. He's pushing me now to go get some sleep. That's how I say it. As can medicine. Yeah, but he gave a person the ability to be able to create that medicine, right? He gave someone the knowledge and the ability to use their brain and their hands to be able to take that, whatever it may be, and make that medicine, right? So yeah, don't discount that. I'd use some prayer requests for relief of anxiety. Absolutely, don't we all? All right, so Kim, also in Western New York. Awesome. Yeah, I'm closer to Batavia, and I live. Well, if you guys know, I live near Darien Lake. If you're in Western New York, you'd understand what that is. So Kim, and anxiety. Yeah. You live in Western New York? No, you don't. Do you? Or you need prayer for Malia? I think she left. Uh-oh. I think people. Amelia, you said you need prayer for. You need prayer for anxiety, or you need prayer for, or you're letting me know that you live in Western New York. You are in Western New York, yeah. Awesome. All right, so let's lift up Kim today. Lord Heavenly Father, we lift up Kim today, and pretty much anybody else, Lord, who is suffering from from anxiety, and as well as Bessie, Lord. We lift, sorry, Malia, right? I never been to U.S., so I've always imagined it to be like a mirror image of the U.K. We'll talk about that after. Lord, we lift up Malia and Kim today, Lord, with the anxiety. Lord, we know that that is a frightening thing for people. Lord, we ask that you touch their mind and touch their heart, Lord, and let them work through the situation that is causing the source of the anxiety. Lord, let them know that all they need to do is reach into your word, and they'll see that they need to not lean on their own understanding, right? Lord, give it over to you and let you take care of it, Lord. And we ask that you do take care of it, and you do reach into their hearts and their minds and give them peace and comfort in knowing that you are there and you are the one that's guiding them and helping them, Lord. We ask this in your mighty Son's name. Amen. Give them peace and comfort. Absolutely. Guys, we're gonna speak to depression as well. There's been quite a bit of that going on. I know that a lot of people may or may not care about certain things, but there's a lot of people that are suffering from depression, and a lot of people that are contemplating suicide, and a lot of people that actually have. In the most recently, we've lost like I listen to some of the secular music that I listen to. We lose. God bless you too, man. I appreciate you. It's hard. It's absolutely hard. Absolutely, I agree. We've lost a couple very good musicians that I grew up listening to, when I was going through high school, and it affects me quite, a bit, because one of the bands, Linkin Park, you guys may or may not know, Linkin Park was really part of my allowing me to be able to help get my anger out when I was growing up, because the music was hard driving, right? And um, a lot of the tones speak to things, right? So we grow up listening to the music, and they're suffering just as we are, right? And I was watching what I missed of Rick's church this morning. Yeah, I hear you. Well, thanks for joining. So I'd like to pray for. We're going to pray about depression, and we're going to pray about addiction, and we're going to include a couple names here you may or may not know, and that's fine. Um, and so and that I'm just going to speak of it, because people like Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington, they both left behind family and stuff like that, their children and wives and stuff like that, due to an illness, a sickness, that causes depression. And I know that struggle for depression runs in my house as well. It's we're not all discounted from it, right? It can affect a lot of different people in a lot of different ways, and so we just we want to make sure that we bring some awareness to it, and we speak to it as well. Yeah, it's here. It's not like it's not. Um, so Lord Heavenly Father, we speak to you today. We bring up to you people who are suffering with depression today, Lord. We know that it is a very hard thing for people to deal with. It causes all kinds of different physical and emotional problems, Lord. We we speak to anybody today, Lord. We ask that you reach into their hearts and their minds, Lord, and just lift that out and make it ease. Lord, take away any thoughts of suicide and any thoughts of leaving this earth too much early, Lord. We want you to fill them with your spirit, Lord, and let them know that through you, through having faith in you, Lord, that they're going to have purpose. They're going to be able to, um, you know, overcome this sickness that is driving their mind into a place that is not good thoughts and not good place to be. Lord, we ask that you just cover over them, and just give them peace and comfort in knowing that they just have you here, to be able to help them through their situation. And Lord, let them also reach out. Let anybody who is suffering, let them reach out to someone who is a professional in this field, or someone in these situations. Lord, let them reach out before it's too late, before they're not here anymore. Lord, let them break through their suffering just for a second to say somebody that they're hurting, Lord, and let others help them be able to guide them through this situation. Lord, we speak to this depression. We cast it away. We don't want it here no more. It's destroying lives. It's and suicide. These thoughts of suicide. We speak it away. Lord, we know that it's the devil just speaking nasty words into people's hearts and their minds. Lord, we cast it away. We ask for peace and comfort for the people who are suffering through these situations tonight, Lord. We ask this in your mighty Son's name. Amen. Yeah, we cast it out. Absolutely, absolutely. The depression and addiction. It's a very tough thing. Very tough thing. Lord, send your spirit in those who need it most. Absolutely. All right, guys. I love Jesus too. He's my Lord and Savior. He took my sins, and even though I didn't deserve it. And I am thankful for that. Amen. Amen. So what do we got on here tonight? Let's see what we got. We got Craig, we got Elaine, we have Malia, we have Jerry Herb, we have Russell Clark, we have Dr. Tim Buss, we have Joe's Pizza still on here, we have Kim, we have Ranchor, and we have Benu, and someone else who's watching from the web. Hope everyone wishes are fulfilled. Have you ever heard of Bible Is? Have you ever heard of Bible Is? Can you explain thou shalt not kill? It's pretty much self-explanatory, I think. If you don't think, if you don't, it's pretty much self-explanatory. Thou shalt not kill. Don't kill. That's pretty understanding of that one. It's an app. So what's an app? An app is, let's see. Have you heard of Bible Is? No, I haven't heard of that one. So it's Bible is the name of it. Glad you feel at peace. Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're here. We're here to pray for you. So if you we're here every night. We are a group of people. Are you a pacifist? That's a very interesting question. I've never had anybody ever ask me that. That is very interesting. So what would make you think that I'm a pacifist? What would make you think that? Are unjustifiable. Do you eat meat? Yes, I do. Blessings to you too. What is a pacifist? Oh, pacifist is someone who, you ready? We'll go look it up real quick because I want to make sure I say it right. I know what it is, but I just want to make sure I say it right. Is a person who is holding the belief that war and violence are unjustifiable, right? So she was a committed pacifist her whole life. Pacifists can support their nations, cannot, what does it say? Even pacifists can support their armed forces, it says. They're basically a peacemaker or a peace lover or something like this, right? Why do you kill animals? Is not meaning meat not simple? No, that's not. Is the Ark of the Covenant a Christian thing? The Ark of the Covenant is a Jewish thing. You said thou shalt not kill. Did you not? Did you not? I personally have not killed anything, no. Boy, you guys are wrapping that one in around, right? To eat meat. Jesus did not ask us to eat meat because he asked us to not kill, right? Jesus said this. Who is Moses? All right. So would kill in a war. Well, that's a really interesting question. I don't know if I would have to do that, right? That pertains to humans, not animals, for food. Exactly. It's more murder, right? Technically, it's more murder. No, no, absolutely not. There's somewhere in there that tells us that it's okay that we can eat meat. I just don't remember the Bible verse off the top of my head. But we're able to eat meat. We're able to eat the meat of animals. It does say. What's no answer? So would kill in a war? Would I kill in a war? I don't know. I don't know. I guess given the circumstances, if I had to if I had to do that, right? I guess it would be don't like cruel treatment of cattle. Well, you know what? Do you eat meat? Joe's Pizza? If it's not murder, Jesus would have mentioned thou shalt not murder, right? But Jesus didn't say that. Jesus didn't say it. That's a really I like this. I like this back and forth banter. It's actually very interesting. Hey Rob, thanks for joining back again. It brings up questions, which questions are interesting, right, for us. But the Bible, thou shalt not kill. Interesting. So why are we focusing in on one tiny little piece of the Bible, right? Okay. But if it's not, treat well, then alive. But what does it say? I do. But if it's treated well when alive, exactly, right? So you're gonna eat what, grass-fed beef, right? You're gonna spend the extra money for grass-fed beef. Avoidance. Nowhere here does it say I have to answer you, right? I'm here giving you my broadcast, so I can control it however it may be. The avoidance is that I've never been in the circumstance to be able to know whether or not I would be in a place to kill somebody. I suppose if I had to do it for my country, right? That because you can't. I don't know. I don't know. I've never been in that situation to know. So, but anyways, back to the broadcast. If you guys follow me, we come here every night. We pray for everybody, right? Is disease a creation of Satan? I don't think so. There's different debates about that. You guys bring up some really good debatable questions. These are like awesome questions. Some of these are going to go into these are some really awesome questions book. No, I haven't thought these things through, obviously. Well, why would I? I live in America, and I'm protected by the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, and my government that I pray for, right? So why would it matter to me if I've never been in a position to have to think about it? I've got far better things to worry about than worrying about the fact that we're not, or if given the position of being in war, would I ever kill somebody? I'm not there, so I wouldn't have to make that decision because I don't have to. So why would you, seriously? I don't know. Anyways, moving along. But if God loved us and he created disease, that's why I thought it would have been Satan. It's very interesting, right? So, disease is part of the stuff that he's created, right? I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Typical double standard. Be as it may, I never had to think about the situation, and I don't intend on thinking it now. Alright? Until the certain time comes. Bye-bye. See you later. Thanks for joining. So yeah, we come on here, we pray for everybody, right? Alright. Bye-bye. See you later. Some people just want to try to agitate and twist other people's words to try to get them to say something for their own enjoyment. And I appreciate anybody who comes on the broadcast and asks questions. As long as they're authentic and they're genuine in their questions, I have no problem answering it, right? As long as I know what it is, right? But if I certainly don't understand why I would want to think about whether I'd have to kill somebody or not, right? Ain't no problem. Listen, this is what we do. This is what God I believe God has laid on my heart to do is to pray for people, and that's what I'm going to do here, right? It's just been something that's been, you know, Justin Smallwood, thank you for joining. We're waiting for Rick to come on. Guys, if you get a chance, I know there's some people that just popped on. I want you to understand that I am part of a I guess an online family, you know, a movement, so to speak, right? We live in a broken world, and sin and sickness and disease are part of the earth experience, right? Absolutely. Um, so some things Jesus came to fix this mess. Thank you, Jesus. So if you check out JesusDidIt.org after the broadcast, you'll see some other broadcasters. I highly recommend that you follow you know, Becky, you follow Rick Costa, you follow Terry, you follow pretty much anybody on that list there, because they will definitely help you be able to guide you through. There's different things, right? There's worship, there's teaching, there is just you know, people who pray for people. There are some people there that only scope every once in a while, only broadcast every once in a while, and their specific purposes is that they pray for people. And so like Zelmenta, when she comes on, she prays for people, and she, you know, she keeps you, you know, she'll, if as long as you email it to her, she'll pray for you, um, and stuff like that. So I'm in the Royal Navy, and it is a completely different world when you are put in a situation like that. I agree with that. I agree with that. And that's why I said I don't know a situation, because I've never been in the military, right? And I'm thankful for those who do serve in the military, because they are really, you know, in a position that that it takes a lot of strength, a lot of brain power to put yourself through that. Not only that, the endurance, right, the physical power that you have to go through to maintain, you know, a particular level of fitness to be able to be in such a position, right? You know, the Royal Navy, I'm pretty sure you have to be able to do all those, you know. Yep, I'm posted on small minesweeper vessels usually. Yep. And so that's crazy work, right? You think about it. You know, you're out there trying to, you know, find the mines that someone puts in there, and what are the chances of you getting killed? Very high, right? So definitely, we we praise those. You know, I won't say praise, but we thank those people who are in our militaries, the ones that are fighting the good fight, right? That are fighting for towards freedoms and things like that. So I know, you know, between your country and our country, we appreciate all men and women of service, and what they do, because um, you know, given the opportunity, you know, who knows? Maybe I would even be doing that as well. But I was never given the opportunity to do it, so I didn't. But I appreciate every single person who does. Um, you know, there's been very many members of my family that have gone into the military and done work. So we are very thankful for them. Without them, we, you know, we'd be, who knows, we'd be all in concentration camps, right? You know, we would all be, you know, who knows? Huh. Just think about it, right? Either all be speaking French, or we would still be an English. So, sorry, my friend from the UK. We'd probably still be colonies of England, right? And stuff like that. So, you know, to those who served, those who fought and died, even, you know, we definitely thank them, because there is there's no greater deed than to die for your brother, and I'm thankful for those who have as well. Um, yeah. So, any prayer requests or praise reports? Definitely. Rick Costa said he was going to be on. I just don't know when exactly. I can try to reach out to him and see when he'll be on. But we continue to pray for peace. Absolutely, absolutely. Even though we still need our people there, right? We to help us. um, but yeah, we definitely pray for peace. We pray for our country. We pray for our military. So why don't we do that, right? Hope world peace can happen. Me too, man. I wish that everybody on this planet would somehow come into unity and be able to work together through all the circumstances that are there. But I think as long as there is extremists in certain areas, I think that you're going to be it's going to be hard to do, because a lot of people have a lot of different vision about what is right and what is wrong, even though they're sort of like the same thing, right? Yep. Easier to do and saves countless lives. Absolutely. Absolutely. But world peace would be a pretty good thing, right? Praise that Rosie's feeling fine tonight, and yesterday she was feeling awful. Praise the Lord. That's right, we prayed for Rosie, and that's right. It's on my list here. It's on my multiple sticky notes. Multiple sticky notes. There we go. So we had multiple sticky notes. Gina. How's Gina doing, by the way? I just saw a little note about her. Came onto my heart a little bit. So yeah, we praise, Lord, we praise you for Rosie. She's feeling better, right? She had. I'm trying to find the paper. Why can I never find these papers lately? I'm so horrible. There's just so many people to pray for. Sometimes we get lost with some of the requests here, unfortunately. I have lots of people. Rosie, pain from Crohn's disease, right? There it is. Just wasn't looking for it right away. So Lord, yes, we thank you for the healing and the pain relief that has reached our sister Rosie. We ask that you pray for her. She said, "Thank you." Oh, no problem. And that's definitely it, guys. When I'm praying, you guys pray too. The more that we lift up people to God, and if you've asked for prayer, make sure you're praying for yourself too. Oh yeah, that's awful, absolutely awful prayer, or I'm sorry, awful situation to be in with that Crohn's disease. That's for sure. That's definitely not good stuff at all. But yeah, definitely. Make sure that you're praying for these people as well as we're praying through it. And if you've asked for prayer, pray yourself with us and continue to pray. God wants to hear your words, right? He wants to hear it, even if you whisper it, even if you just say it in your mind. You talk to Him. He can hear your thoughts, and He knows where your heart is. But He wants to hear you be able to let it out and say it, right? I'm so glad I'm glad she's feeling better too. Absolutely. Looks like Egg Drop has dropped off the planet, so I may have missed a couple comments. I'm sorry. Egg Drop's gone silly. God hears me talk all day. That's right. There's been times that I sat there and talked to God and continuously, right? And then I'm sitting there thinking to myself, boy, I must have been I must I must people must think I'm crazy. If they ever heard me talk back and forth with God, they probably would think I'm nuts. But that's what it is. He wants to hear our requests. He wants to hear what we have to say. He wants a relationship with us. He wants to know where our heart is at. Even though He knows where it is, He wants us to know where our heart is at, right? And that's really what it is. Looks like Egg Drop has dropped off the planet. So, God is my peace. He is definitely my peace as well. I just got back from a missions trip to Dominican Republic, and it's really helped me understand a little bit more where my heart is. Right, it's my second trip to the Dominican Republic, and absolutely love the people there and what goes on. And ministry is very important. And guys, if you ever get a chance to go on a missions trip, I highly recommend it. You will change unbelievable amounts through your faith by doing that. She's your aunt, but you're really close as sisters, and I hate it when she's hurting. Amen. Amen. Hope she gets well. Absolutely. Pray for her. Any more prayer requests? Praise reports. topics of discussions. I was really hoping the evolution thing was going to go further, but that's fine. Syria. We didn't pray for Syria. Let's do that. Syria. And that's for our friend from Joe. Pray for those with cancer. Absolutely. Joe Pizza. Cancer. That was Kim. Yes, yes. Cancer is a very bad thing. It took both my grandmother and my grandfather. Cancer did. So, Lord Heavenly Father, we lift up the country of Syria today, Lord. We know that there is lots of turmoil there, and we know that there is things going on within its borders that are just hard to watch happen. Lord, we pray that that your people, the Christians that are in those areas, Lord, that we ask that they that they slowly pray for their fellow countrymen, as well as help them understand, to evangelize, even though it may be life-threatening to them. Lord, we ask that they try to get the word of the good news of Jesus Christ to those who are willing to accept it and willing to help bring peace to that country, Lord. We ask this in your mighty Son's name, for the regimes and all the extremisms and all this stuff to be cleared up there, Lord. Let Jesus Christ be the focus on the people in that country. Let the Christians be rising and being able to help bring food and bring shelter and bring the Word of God and the good news of Jesus Christ to all the people in Syria today, Lord. We ask this in your mighty Son's name. Amen. Lord, we lift up people who are walking around on this planet who are suffering from this disease called cancer, Lord. We this Holy Spirit in the hearts of all humans. Amen. Lord, we speak to cancer that is in people walking around the earth today, Lord. We know that cancer takes a lot of lives from us, Lord. We speak to that cancer and we command it out of the people who may have it, Lord. We just we don't want this this demon, this bad disease that's taking very many lives. We don't want it here no more, Lord. We command it out in Jesus' mighty name, and we ask that you see through it, that their wounds are healed and their bodies are rejuvenated and brought back into full and complete, without any yep, by your stripes. There you go. You're healed. Absolutely. Amen. By Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. Alright, guys. Anything else? Alright, is there anybody, let's see, is there any of the Jesus Did It broadcasters in the room tonight? Looks like we have no broadcasters right now. So definitely loving God. We lift up Syria and her people and ask for peace within her borders, healing and joy. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Let me see how far off Rick is. Let's see if he responds. Hope it all ends. Let's hope it all ends soon. Yeah, we do. Peace to all nations of the world. Lord Heavenly Father, we lift up all nations of the world, but specifically today, Lord, we lift up the United States, Lord. We ask that the people of the United States really come together and unify, and really bring back the word united in our United States, Lord. Let all these differences that make us separating and dividing, Lord, we ask that we that we get over those issues, and we get over ourselves, and let all these things be just cleared up, and all these um, these thoughts of treasons and all these other things, and all these lawsuits and all this stuff. Lord, we just ask that that be cleared up in Jesus' mighty name. We specifically pray for our, yep, be kind to each other, Father. Yep, remind us to keep, yep, absolutely. Lord, we ask that we lift up our government today, Lord. We lift up all of our senators and our representatives, and all these people that are in Congress, and in the judiciary areas, Lord, and all the judges, and specifically our president, Lord. We lift them up, and we ask that you whisper in their ears and let them know that, and give them guidance, and let them be making decisions that are honoring to you, Lord, and not fall to the conditions of the world, not to let the quote-unquote politically correctness run our world, Lord. Give them wisdom, give them direction, so that way we can be a mighty nation again, with under you, God, under your precious name. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. It's crazy, man. I'm telling you what, there is so much like division. It's unbelievable. Syria, too sleepy. I've forgotten how to spell exactly. Amen. Yeah, it's hard to see the people within our borders that are just fighting, and against the police, and the police are against the people, and you know and even to think that there is still this big huge racial divide in our country today, nearly what is it, almost 50 years later, that we're still fighting the same battle, where people are feeling they're oppressed, um, and feeling that the government is all these conspiracy theories and all this stuff just drives me absolutely insane. You know, I look at another person. I don't care if you're black, white, yellow, brown. You're a politician. You're wearing a suit. You're wearing jeans. The only thing I'd probably look at you weird about is if you weren't wearing any clothes at all. But I don't care who you are or what you are. I'm still gonna love you, because that's what Jesus told me to do. And that is the greatest commandment, right? The greatest commandment is to love the Lord our God with all of our mind, heart, and our soul, right? And then also the second commandment, right? The second most important commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. So just as you love God, you want to love your neighbor. Guess what? That's what he said we got to do. I don't know why we don't do it. There's a lot of people playing Christian lately, and for a long time, and it's hard to see that some people are truly that sit in the seats of the church, who don't live out their faith, don't act out their faith, don't live within the direction that is very simple. It's really simple commands. All those other laws, all those other things, those were 700 something laws that the Jewish people had to live within the Old Testament. I'm so glad we don't live under Old Testament law anymore, because I wouldn't be able to keep anything straight. I'd probably be one of the most sinful people there is, right? Along with the half the rest of us, right? And I just love the fact that Jesus came here and made it very simple. Love God, love people. Everything else will fall in line, right? All those other rules will be taken care of with that, right? There would be rebellion everywhere. Yeah, it's really, if you were to look beside your situation, right, and people to get rid of their pride, and get rid of that the feeling that they need to be able to, I don't think I'd win many prizes either, right? But hey, there's Rick, guys. Everybody, Rick Acosta is in the house, so that means that he is probably home and almost ready to go on broadcast. And considering it's 12:23 in the AM, I definitely request that you guys follow Rick. Rick threw up some emojis. For those of you who may or may not know who Rick Costa is, Rick Costa is the founder of the Jesus Did It group. He is the one who created the website and has put together a great group of people to minister to you. And we all do it for free. We don't charge. There is no, that's right, JesusDidIt.org. We do not charge for this service, right? I don't sit here and say I'm going to give you a word if you give me some money in my PayPal, right? In fact, if you look at my bio, there is no PayPal, right? The only way I want you to bless me is to come on the broadcast and help support the Jesus Did It group. Help share the word of Jesus Christ, right? Invite and follow and share. Let's get more people to know who Jesus is, right? To understand what he did on the cross for us and how we can help grow the kingdom, right? So we all can be in heaven again one day, right? I would hate to be. There's some really cool people that I would really like to be able to hang out with in heaven, and because now I have constraints of you know, of miles and distance between people, right? I would really love to hang out with some people in heaven, because I don't think there's going to be miles and differences, right? I don't think there's going to be all these constraints that we have here on this earth in heaven that we have, that we have now. So I really want to. Thousands of miles, right? Absolutely, and a whole big body of water, and I want to encourage everybody. If you do not believe in Jesus Christ, I definitely ask that you seek him out, right? And listen to his words. And maybe it may not happen today, but remember the urgency, right? We don't know when our last breath is going to be. We don't know when we're going to be able to, when it's too late, right? You could die tomorrow. You could die in your sleep. And if you don't declare Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you're not getting to heaven. You're not getting there. I'm sorry to tell you, but it's a sad state of affair, right? If you go to close your eyes tonight without declaring Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, the chances of you never waking up again, and never being with the rest of the people that you love, it's going to be a tough deal. And I pray for you guys. I pray for your salvation. I pray that you would they give you a chance as you die to accept him. Depends if you have, right? You have to be able to speak it now in this world, right? You can't be rotten all the way along and then all of a sudden decide that you want to be, I shouldn't say rotten, to be sinful, right? All the way along, and then your very last breath say, I believe it. But I know that God is a forgiving God, and I'm pretty sure that if you were to speak those words at your dying breath, I'm pretty sure that he would accept you, right? I don't know, I'm not him, but I know what the words say, that we have to accept him as our Lord and Savior, and while we're here on this earth. And so I encourage anybody here. Hey, Andrea, thanks for joining. Amen, amen. So yeah, definitely. And even after the broadcast, all you got to do is just drop to your knees and pray and say, Lord, I accept you. I accept what you did on the cross for me. I may not understand everything or why I'm supposed to accept you, but Lord, I accept you now, and I will learn, and it'll take time. That's why I'm here, right? The good thief, right? But that's why I'm here. I'm here to show you guys that someone was broken, right? I was broken pretty bad, and I was broken. That's a good way to put it, right? I was a mean, angry person who people didn't like. And that's pretty much the best way of putting it. And if you don't know Jesus, just learn about him, right? Start there, right? Go grab a Bible, download the app, read the book of John. The book of John will explain who Jesus is, what he did for you. Read the parables, understand what his thoughts are there. And even if it does not make sense to you, even if it doesn't make sense to you, you're like reading the stuff and it's just not sinking in, keep reading it. Read John, then go in and read the Acts, right? And then go back around again and read all 4 of the Gospels. Yep, that's right, man. And that's what we do, right? I'm here to help, right? And I've only given you little bits and pieces. There's so many more words there. And the moment you accept him, you will start feeling, right? You mind if I go on? No, go ahead, man. I'm finishing up anyways. I'm tired too. My head is like pounding. So I pray over my head. Honestly, not really pounding. It's like a weird sinus thing. It's very humid here in Western New York. Although it's not that very hot, it is very humid for some reason, and it is just like messing with my sinuses. Unbelievable. The Flonase is not working very great today. So guys, follow Rick Costa. He's going to be going on. I do encourage you to go over there and oppressive, right? Go over and visit with him. He will definitely hear. Wow, is that amazing to heat, Joe? This is amazing to heat. Yeah, it's not very hot, but it's definitely, yeah. So definitely Rick Costa's going on now, guys. Go over there. Listen, know that Jesus loves you. Know that I love you. Know that every single member that Jesus Did It family loves you. Go on over to the website, check them out. And definitely, there. That's all right. Headache will go away, man. It's not a big deal. My God's got this. He's bigger than this headache. So guys, take it easy. Get some rest. Like I said, know that Jesus loves you. Know that I love you. And just get some rest, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Joe. Come on back tomorrow, and we'll talk some more. I appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody who come on here. Thank you. Oh, yeah, we'll be good. Yep, take care of them sinuses. Yep, pain, go, healing, flow. Exactly, in Jesus' name. Absolutely. Guys, so take it easy. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a nice night and get some well-needed rest. And we'll see you on Rick Costa Scope in a couple minutes here. Thank you, and have a nice night. And remember, be blessed. I'm going on his broadcast right now. I'll be over there in a second.